The snowstorm of March 2008 had transformed Toronto into a white and hostile labyrinth. The streets of the financial district, normally teeming with hurried executives, were deserted at 9 o'clock at night. The biting wind howled between the glass and steel skyscrapers, carrying snowflakes that danced beneath the yellowish streetlights. Thomas Brennan, 47, CEO of Brennan Industries, a technology company valued at $340 million Canadian dollars, staggered down Bay Street. His $3,000 Jas Armani suit was soaked, the silk tie hanging crookedly around his neck. His normally piercing and calculating blue eyes were glazed, bloodshot. The bottle of single malt scotch he had drunk alone in his office still burned in his throat. 3 hours earlier, his secretary Jennifer had delivered the divorce papers. It wasn't just the end of a 20-year marriage to Margaret, it was the loss of joint custody of their 15-year-old twins, Lucas and Emma. The judge had been clear. A father who worked 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, was not emotionally available for teenagers in a critical stage of development. Thomas tripped on the snow-covered curb, falling to his knees. The physical pain was welcome, anything to distract his mind from the image of Emma's disappointed eyes when he had missed her school dance recital for the 6th time in a row, or from Lucas's icy silence, who had given up trying to talk to his father about his hockey games. Pathetic, he muttered to himself, struggling to stand. His fingers were numb, rapidly losing feeling. How long had he been out there? 15 minutes? An hour? The alcohol made it impossible to know. That's when he heard the voice. "Hey, friend, are you okay?" Thomas looked up and saw a figure approaching, a man wearing layers of worn clothes, a tattered woolen hat, and pushing a shopping cart full of plastic bags and torn blankets. His brown eyes shone with surprising gentleness amidst a face marked by the elements. "Leave me alone," Thomas grumbled, finally managing to stand up. His knees buckled. The homeless man moved closer, ignoring the hostility. "You need to get out of this cold. The temperature is dropping fast. It could feel like minus 20 degrees. Hypothermia is no joke." "I told you to leave me alone." Thomas tried to push the stranger away, but his arms wouldn't obey properly. The world spun. With surprisingly gentle movements, the man held him. Hey, calm down. My name is Jack Morrison. There's a shelter 3 blocks from here. Let me at least take you there." "I don't need shelter. I have a $2 million house in Forest Hill," Thomas said, slurring his words. But even in his altered state, he understood the absurdity. His house, where he would no longer be welcome. Margaret had made that crystal clear. "Of course there is," Jack said patiently, beginning to guide him along the sidewalk. "But right now, you need a warm place. Come on." Thomas wanted to resist, but his body was giving up. His feet followed Jack automatically as the man narrated the safest route, commenting on how the snow had covered the dangerous patches of ice. "You speak like someone who is educated," Thomas remarked, his tongue heavy. Jack laughed, a sound without bitterness. "McGill University, class of 1985, bachelor's degree in history. It feels like a different life now." This information should have surprised Thomas, but he was becoming dangerously drowsy. His thoughts were swirling. Emma dancing, Lucas skating, Margaret yelling about how many dinners he'd missed, Jack's kind eyes, the piercing cold. "Stay with me!" Jack's voice grew more urgent. "Don't fall asleep. Are you listening? Talk to me. What's your name?" "Thomas," he murmured. "Thomas Brennan." Jack stopped abruptly. "Thomas Brennan? Of Brennan Industries?" But Thomas didn't hear the question. His legs gave way completely. The last thing he saw before darkness fell was Jack screaming for help, and then nothing. But what was a homeless man, a graduate of one of Canada's top universities, doing on the streets of Toronto? And why did the name Thomas Brennan make him stop so suddenly? Thomas woke with a start, his heart racing. Fluorescent lights shone above him. The smell of disinfectant and stale coffee filled his nostrils. He lay on a narrow stretcher, covered in rough woolen blankets. His head throbbed as if someone were hammering his skull from the inside. "Welcome back to the land of the living," said a middle-aged nurse, checking his vital signs. "You were lucky. 15 more minutes out there, and we would have been dealing with amputations or worse. Your friend saved your life." "My friend?" Thomas's voice came out hoarse. "The man who brought you. Jack something. He stayed there all night in the waiting room, refusing to leave until he was sure you'd be okay." The memory returned in painful fragments. The snow, the fall, Jack Morrison. Thomas closed his eyes, the shame burning hotter than any hypothermia. A homeless man had cared for him, while he, a millionaire, lay drunkenly in the street like an irresponsible teenager. 3 hours later, wearing clean clothes his assistant had brought, Thomas left the hospital. Jack was sitting in the waiting room, his cart parked nearby, reading an old newspaper with meticulous attention. "You stayed," Thomas said, his voice heavy with the emotion he rarely allowed to show. Jack looked up and smiled. "Of course. I wanted to make sure you were okay." Thomas sat down beside him, ignoring the curious stares of other patients. "Why did you do that? You don't even know me." "I don't need to know anyone to help you," Jack replied simply. Then, after a pause, he added, "But actually I do know you. Or rather, I knew your father." Thomas felt a shiver run down his spine. "My father? Robert Brennan? I worked for him. From 1987 to 1992, I was a junior engineer at Brennan Industries when it was still just a small electronics components company in Mississauga. His father was different from other bosses. Fair, visionary, he truly cared about people." The words hit Thomas like a punch. His father had died in 1995 from pancreatic cancer. Thomas was only 26 when he took over the company, transforming it from a modest operation of 20 employees into a technological giant with offices in 5 countries. "But in the process, what happened to you?" Thomas asked softly. "Why are you on the streets?" Jack's face closed up. "Momentarily. Life happened. My wife Sarah was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 1993. The medical bills piled up. The insurance didn't cover everything. I had to choose between experimental medications that could help her and keep our home. I chose Sarah." Jack paused, his eyes distant. "She died in 1998. I had already lost everything: house, savings, job. I fell into a deep depression. I tried to rebuild, but at 45, with no recent references and gaps in my resume, the doors simply wouldn't open. Eventually, the streets became my reality." Thomas felt something break inside him. Here was a man who had sacrificed everything for love, while he had sacrificed his family for spreadsheets and shareholder meetings. 10 years on the streets, Jack continued, his voice surprisingly serene. "You learn things. Kindness exists in the most unexpected places. The homeless community has its own support network. Pete, who stays at Union Station, always shares his meals. Maria, near City Hall, knits scarves for everyone in the winter. They're my family now." "This isn't fair," Thomas said, anger rising, not against Jack, but against the system, against himself. "Life is rarely fair," Jack replied philosophically, "but we can still choose how we respond to it. I choose to help when I can. I helped you yesterday." Thomas looked at the man beside him, more dignified in his rags than Thomas had ever felt in his designer suits. And at that moment, an idea began to germinate in Thomas Brennan's mind. An idea that would change both their lives forever. But first, he needed to confront the wreckage of his own existence. The following Monday, Thomas entered the Brennan Industries boardroom with a determination his executives hadn't seen in years. At the table were his 5 vice presidents: David Chen, CFO, Patricia Holbrook, COO, Marcus Webb, CTO, Rachel Goldstein, CMO, and Jonathan Price, CLO, the corporate counsel. "Ladies and gentlemen," Thomas began, his A voice firm despite the emotional hangover he still carried. "We are going to implement a new program in the company. It's called the Second Chances Initiative." David Chen frowned, adjusting his glasses. "Thomas, our schedule is already packed. The launch of the new software in June, the expansion into the Asian market." "That's a priority," Thomas interrupted him. He had spent the entire weekend researching, doing calculations, and most importantly, reflecting. "We're going to create a professional reintegration program for homeless people with prior qualifications. Training, mentoring, real job positions." The silence in the room was deafening. Patricia finally spoke, choosing her words carefully. "Thomas, I admire the sentiment, but there are practical implications: insurance, liability issues, productivity." "Your father tried something similar once," Jonathan interrupted, flipping through documents on his tablet. "In 1991, a smaller program. 3 people. 2 did well. 1 had problems with substance abuse relapse. The program was quietly shut down." Thomas leaned forward. "My father was ahead of his time, and he didn't have the resources we have now. Let's do this right. Partnerships with mental health organizations, gradual transition programs, assisted living through our corporate foundation." "How much will this cost?" David asked, ever the pragmatist. "Initially, $2 million annually. We will start with 10 participants in the pilot program." $2 million, David repeated, incredulous. "Thomas, our shareholders are going to have a fit. We're already under pressure to raise dividends. Shareholders can expect a quarter," Thomas replied coldly. "This company was built on values. My father believed that a corporation has a social responsibility. Somewhere along the way, I forgot that." Marcus Webb, the CTO who normally avoided confrontation, cleared his throat. "Is there a personal reason for this, Thomas? You've been different since Friday." Thomas hesitated. Vulnerability wasn't his strong suit. He'd built a fortress around his emotions over 2 decades. But Jack had opened up to him. Maybe it was time to start doing the same. "A man named Jack Morrison saved my life on Friday night. He's homeless, and he used to work for my father." He told the story, edited, omitting its most embarrassing details, but keeping the essence. When he finished, he saw varied expressions: surprise, concern, skepticism. Rachel Goldstein was the first to speak, her voice gentle. "Thomas, no one is questioning your intentions, but programs like this have failed before at other companies. The success rate for long-term reintegration is about 23% according to a 2007 study by the University of Toronto. It's a risky gamble." "Then we'll be part of the 23% that works," Thomas retorted. "Listen, I know I sound like an idealistic idiot, but look at it this way. If it works, we have an incredible public relations story. Corporate social responsibility is becoming increasingly important to millennial investors, and if it doesn't work," he paused, "at least we will have tried to do something right." Patricia studied him carefully. "Would you hire Jack Morrison?" "Yes, as a special consultant for the program. He knows these people. He understands the real challenges." "Is he qualified?" "He has a degree from McGill and 10 years of field experience that no MBA can teach." Jonathan drummed his fingers on the table. "Legally, I can make this work, but we need rigorous structures, regular evaluations, clear policies on substances, support protocols. And Thomas," he paused meaningfully, "you need to be prepared for failure. Some people won't make it. And when that happens, it can't affect your judgment about the entire program." Thomas nodded slowly. He knew Jonathan was right. His tendency was to see the world in terms of absolute successes and failures, one of the reasons his family had fallen apart. But things needed to change. "Are you in or out?" he finally asked. One by one they nodded, some enthusiastically, others reluctantly, but they all nodded. "Great, David, I want detailed numbers by Wednesday. Patricia, connect with local NGOs. Marcus, think about what kinds of technical positions we can create for different skill levels. Rachel, keep this low-key for now. No press releases until we have real success stories. Jonathan, start with the legal paperwork. As the meeting ended and everyone left, Patricia remained. Thomas, can I ask you a personal question? He nodded. Is this about your divorce? Thomas smiled sadly. It's about who I've become versus who my father raised me to be. It's time to remember. But as Thomas embarked on his crusade of corporate redemption, forces he hadn't anticipated were already working against him. And not everyone at Brennan Industries shared his newfound vision. Jack Morrison sat on a snow-covered park bench near Yonge Dundas Square, sharing sandwiches with three of his street companions. Pete, a 50-year-old Gulf War veteran with a toothless grin. Maria, a 62-year-old Salvadoran immigrant who hummed tunes while knitting. And Derek, a 28-year-old whose eyes still carried the fresh pain of a recent fall. So the rich guy really came back to see you? Pete asked, chewing on his peanut butter sandwich. 3 times this week, Jack confirmed. He wants me to work for him. Maria stopped knitting. Work? How? Can I pee? It's impossible. A real job, consultant for some program he's creating, salary, benefits, everything. Derek let out a bitter laugh. It's a trick, man. These millionaires don't give anything away for free. He'll put you in some promotional video, use your story, and then kick you out on the street again when he doesn't need you anymore. Jack didn't respond immediately. He understood Derek's skepticism. The young man had been a store manager for a retail chain before false. Accusations of theft landed him in prison for 6 months. When he was exonerated, his reputation was ruined, and no one would hire him. Maybe, Jack finally said, but what if it is legitimate? Then you'd be a fool not to accept, Pete stated pragmatically. Jack, you're 54 years old. How many more winters do you think you can survive out here? Your left knee can barely take it anymore. Maria reached out and shook Jack's hand. Pete's right. And you said you knew his father, that he was a good man. Maybe the apple didn't fall so far from the tree. Or maybe it fell and rolled downhill, Derek murmured. But there was something in his voice, a poorly disguised desire. That afternoon, Jack went to the Brennan Industries office. The 12-story glass building intimidated him, a monument to a world he no longer belonged to. The receptionist, a young woman named Samantha, looked at him with obvious suspicion until he mentioned Thomas's name. In the office on Chisenham, the 11th floor, Thomas was waiting for him with another person, a woman of about 40, with short black hair, red-rimmed glasses, and a warm expression. Jack, this is Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a clinical psychologist specializing in trauma and reintegration. She will be leading the mental health component of our program. Elena extended her hand without hesitation. It's a pleasure to meet you, Jack. Thomas told me about you. Your track record is impressive. They spent 2 hours discussing the program. Elena explained her approach: individual assessments, ongoing therapy, support groups, treatment for addictions when needed, coping strategies for PTSD and depression. Most programs fail because they treat symptoms, not causes, she said. Someone might get a job, but if they're still carrying unresolved trauma, the first major crisis will cause everything to crumble. We need to build emotional resilience along with financial stability. Thomas then presented the contract. A starting salary of $55,000 annually, full health insurance, 2 weeks of vacation, and housing assistance for 6 months while Jack got settled in. There's an apartment available in a building in Parkdale that the company owns, Thomas explained. Nothing luxurious, but clean, safe, and furnished. You can move in this weekend. Jack stared at the contract, his hands trembling slightly. It was all too real, too fast. Part of him wanted to sign immediately. Another part screamed that it was too good to be true. Why are you doing this? He asked abruptly. The truth, Thomas. Don't give me corporate speeches about social responsibility. Thomas leaned back in his chair, the weight of honesty in his eyes. Because you showed me that I had become everything my father wasn't. Because my marriage ended and my children barely know me and everything I built seems empty. Because you made the right choice when you had to choose and I always made the wrong one. And because, his voice faltered, I need to believe there's still time to fix things. A heavy silence hung in the air. Finally, Jack picked up the pen. All right, he said, but on one condition. Pete, Maria, and Derek, they're part of the program too. Thomas smiled. They're already on the list. But while Jack was signing the contract that would change his life, on the other side of town, a very different conversation was taking place. One that threatened to destroy everything before it even began. David Chen sat in an upscale Japanese restaurant in Yorkville, poking at his sashimi with chopsticks while listening to the man across from him, Gregory Hartwell, 59, a member of the board of Brennan Industries and the company's second largest individual shareholder, controlling 17% of the stock. $2 million, Hartwell said, his deep voice heavy with disdain. On bums. Thomas insists it's an investment in corporate social responsibility, David replied cautiously. He didn't like Hartwell. The man was a corporate vulture who saw everything through the lens of quarterly returns. But David also had fiduciary obligation. Nonsense. It's a midlife crisis. The divorce has left him unstable. Hartwell leaned forward. You saw the last quarter's numbers we received yesterday. Growth of only 4%. Our competitors are at 8–10%. Thomas is distracted, doing charity work while the company bleeds market share. David couldn't completely deny it. Thomas's focus had been divided in recent weeks. Important meetings had been delegated, strategic decisions postponed. What are you proposing? An emergency board meeting. Question its leadership. If necessary, invoke the competence clause of the corporate bylaws. David choked on his sake. Are you talking about removing Thomas as CEO? He founded this company with his father. He is Brennan Industries, and he was a good CEO for 15 years. But people change, David. You know that. Hartwell paused for effect. I have enough votes on the board, but it would be cleaner, less destructive, if the executive team supported it. If you, Patricia, and the others agreed that leadership changes are necessary. I'm out, David said immediately, starting to get up. 50,000 shares, Hartwell said calmly, as a retention bonus for each executive who supports the transition. At the current market price, that's $2.3 million for you, David. Think of your children's college, your retirement. David froze. He had 3 children, 2 already in university, a third starting next year. His ex-wife had taken half of everything in the divorce 5 years ago. And yes, he had thought about retirement, about not having to work until he was 70. Who would be the CEO, he asked, hating himself for even considering it. Patricia Holbrook. She's competent, respected, and doesn't have Thomas's emotional baggage. Hartwell smiled. Think about it. I have a board meeting scheduled in 3 weeks. It would be a shame to have to make this hostile. Meanwhile, Jack was having his first official day at Brennan Industries. His new apartment was small but miraculously clean. A real bed, a working hot shower, a refrigerator he still didn't know how to fill. He had slept the first night in total silence, without the constant noise of the street, and woke up disoriented, momentarily panicking until he remembered where he was. Elena Rodriguez met him in the lobby at 8 in the morning. Ready for the big day? As ready as I can be, Jack admitted. He was wearing clothes Thomas had provided, khaki pants, a blue polo shirt, new shoes that still hurt his feet. The day was an avalanche of information. Elena guided him through health assessments, HR meetings, and orientation sessions. He met Pete, Maria, and Derek, all equally nervous, all wearing new clothes with the same mixture of hope and terror. Is this real? Maria whispered to him during lunch in the company cafeteria. Her eyes were brimming with tears. "I have my own apartment, Jack. First time in 9 years." But it wasn't all celebration. During a group session with Elena, Derek exploded. "Why are we here?" he demanded. "Really? To make this millionaire feel better about himself? To be his charity project?" Elena didn't back down. "Derek, your anger is valid. Many people have failed you, the justice system, your former employers, society. But now you have a choice. You can seize this opportunity with both hands, or you can let it slip away because you're afraid to try and fail again." Derek remained silent, but Jack saw tears in the corners of his eyes. At the end of the day, Thomas called Jack into his office. "How did it go?" "Overwhelming," Jack admitted. "Good, but overwhelming." "I wanted to talk to you about something." Thomas sounded tired. "There's resistance on the board. Some members think this program is reckless. They want to cancel it." Jack felt his stomach sink. "Not yet. But we need wins, Jack. We need to show tangible results, and we need them quickly." Jack nodded slowly, the weight of expectations settling on his shoulders. It wasn't just his own redemption at stake. It was Thomas's as well, and perhaps that of all who would come after them. "Let's make it happen," he said with more confidence than he felt. But none of them knew that the clock was ticking faster than they imagined, and that some people at Brennan Industries had already decided that the Second Chances initiative and Thomas himself needed to be eliminated. 3 weeks after the program's launch, the first cracks began to appear. Derek had missed 2 consecutive days of work without notice. When Jack finally found him at the apartment, the young man was curled up in a fetal position on the sofa, the curtains drawn, the atmosphere foul. "Go away," Derek murmured without looking up. Jack rushed in anyway, throwing open the windows. "What happened?" "I can't, Jack. I try, but I can't. I woke up this morning and I just couldn't get out of bed. The weight, you know, like someone sitting on my chest." Jack sat on the floor beside the sofa. He knew that feeling intimately. The years after Sarah's death had been exactly like that. "Are you taking the medication that Dr. Rodriguez prescribed?" Derek pointed to the kitchen counter. "Sealed jars, untouched." "Medication won't solve everything," he said bitterly. "It doesn't change the fact that I'm an ex-convict, that my own mother no longer answers my calls, that I've wasted my entire life." "You're 28 years old, Derek. Your life has barely begun. Easy for you to say. You're the poster boy of the show now, the homeless guy who saved the millionaire. Everyone loves you. I'm just baggage." The words cut Jack short, but he understood. Eleanor had warned them about this, the comparison, the envy, the self-sabotage. "Derek, each of us has our own journey. Mine took 10 years on the streets before I got here. Yours may be different, but no less valid." He stayed with Derek for 3 hours, calling Elena, making sure the young man took his medication, and preparing a simple meal. When he finally left, it was almost midnight. The following morning, Thomas faced his own breakdown. A board meeting had been called, officially to discuss expansion strategy. But Thomas knew the truth. Gregory Hartwell was making his move. The board meeting room on the 12th floor had panoramic views of Toronto. 9 board members were present, their faces carefully neutral. Hartwell began gently, discussing performance figures. "Try again, L continue today, market trends, projections for the next quarter." Then he attacked. "Now, regarding the allocation of resources," Hartwell said, his eyes fixed on Thomas. $2 million were diverted to an initiative not previously approved by the board, the so-called Second Chances initiative. "It was approved," Thomas replied calmly. "Under my authority as CEO for CSR programs below 5 million. Technically correct," Hartwell conceded. "But the issue isn't legality, it's judgment. Thomas, no one here questions your intentions, but your priorities seem misaligned. Our growth is stagnant, Asian expansion is lagging, and you're personally involved in a project that frankly belongs to an NGO, not a tech company. Corporate social responsibility increases brand value, Patricia Holbrook interjected, surprising Thomas. She wasn't necessarily an ally, but she was fair. Research shows that millennials and Gen Z prefer companies with a social conscience. Research also shows that they prefer products that work, Hartwell retorted. Our latest software release had problems, bugs that could have been avoided with more executive oversight. Where were you, Thomas? In group therapy sessions with homeless people? Thomas's blood boiled. Watch your words, Gregory. Or what? Are you going to fire me from the board? Hartwell laughed. 17% of the shares give me a voice here, and I'm not alone in my concerns. He looked around the table. 3 other board members nodded. Harold Chen, no relation to David, Margaret Foster, and James Liu. 4 votes out of 9. Not yet a majority, but dangerously close. I propose a motion, Hartwell continued. Quarterly executive review. If the numbers don't improve, if growth doesn't reach at least 7% in the next quarter, the board will re-evaluate the executive leadership. The silence was as heavy as lead. It was a guillotine with a timer. According to the motion, Harold Chen said calmly, the vote was quick. 5 in favor, including Patricia, who avoided Thomas's gaze. 4 against. The motion passed. 3 months, Thomas, Hartwell said as the meeting drew to a close. Show us you can still lead this company, or we'll find someone who can. Thomas returned to his office and found Jack waiting, his face grim. Derek is in crisis, Jack said without preamble. Elena thinks he might not make it. And if he gives up, others might follow. Maria is strong, but Pete had a relapse. He drank yesterday. Not much, but still. It's harder than we thought, Thomas slumped into his chair. The board just gave me 3 months to save my career. If the numbers don't improve, they'll fire me. Then cancel the program, Jack said simply. Focus on what you need to do. I understand. No. The word came out stronger than Thomas intended. My father wouldn't give up, and I won't desert you. Your father didn't lose his company because of stubbornness either, Jack pointed out. Thomas, be practical. You have employees, shareholders, responsibilities. Don't throw it all away because what? About 4 people society forgot? About doing the right thing for the first time in years? Thomas stood up, walking to the window. Down below, Toronto pulsed with life. Thousands of people chasing their dreams, building their lives. How many of them were a disaster away from the streets? When I took over this company, he said calmly, I was 26 years old and terrified. My father had just died. I knew nothing about management, about leadership, but he had left me a letter. Thomas opened his drawer, taking out an envelope yellowed with age. He had never shown it to anyone. He wrote, Tommy, businesses aren't about money. They're about people. Those who work for you, those who buy from you, those whose decisions are affected by your decisions. If you put profit above humanity, you'll succeed for a while, but eventually you'll look in the mirror and not recognize the man looking back. Jack remained silent. I forgot that, Thomas continued, his voice breaking. I forgot that people matter. I lost my family because I chose spreadsheets over hockey games, and I almost died alone in the snow because I was so lost in my own importance that I forgot how to ask for help. He turned to Jack. You saved me, Jack. Not just from that night. You saved me from becoming something unrecognizable. So no, I'm not going to cancel the program. Let's make both work, or fail trying. Jack studied the man in front of him. A millionaire willing to risk everything for a principle. He was noble. He was insane. And that was precisely why Jack had agreed to help. All right, he finally said. Then we need... And while the 2 men began to devise their strategy, neither of them realized that the greatest threat to the program would not come from the board, nor from the participants' difficulties, but from a completely unexpected place. The plan that Thomas and Jack developed was ambitious and risky. They needed to prove two things simultaneously: that the Second Chances initiative worked, and that Brennan Industries was still an innovative powerhouse. The solution lay in combining them. What if, Jack suggested during a 2 o'clock brainstorming session, surrounded by empty coffee cups, we used the participants' experiences to inform product development? Thomas looked up, intrigued. Explain. Derek worked in retail for 5 years. He knows point-of-sale systems, inventory management, and customer experience from an angle none of your engineers know, from the shop floor. Maria worked in textile manufacturing for 20 years before immigrating. Pete has military experience in logistics. We're not just charity projects, Thomas. We're untapped resources. The idea crystallized in Thomas's mind. A new retail management software, designed with direct input from people who actually worked in the trenches, not just managers or consultants, real workers. And if it works, Jack continued, now excited, you prove to the board that innovation can come from anywhere. That diversity of experience is an asset, not a liability. The following morning, Thomas summoned Marcus Webb, the CTO. Marcus arrived skeptical, but as Jack presented his vision, a point-of-sale system that truly understood the challenges of small and medium-sized retail businesses, his expression changed. The market for this is huge, Marcus admitted. Current solutions are either too expensive or too complex for small businesses. If we can get something intuitive, affordable, he paused, doing mental calculations. We could be looking at 20, maybe 30 million in revenue in the first year. And Derek would be the lead consultant, Thomas said, along with Jack. Form a team, engineers working directly with people who know the real pain points. The following weeks were transformative. Derek, initially hesitant, blossomed when he realized his experience had value. He arrived early, stayed late, working with the development team. His contributions were practical and insightful. You have this drop-down menu here, he pointed out during a design review. But at the counter, when you have a line of 10 people and a system crashing, you don't have time for menu navigation. You need large buttons, direct access to the most frequently used functions. And here, you're assuming a constant internet connection, but many small shops in rural areas have unstable internet. It needs to work offline. The engineers, initially condescending, began to truly listen. Derek wasn't just a former retail worker. He was a goldmine of practical knowledge they would never have considered. Maria brought insights into inventory management that revolutionized the inventory module. Pete, with his experience in military logistics, optimized the shipping and receiving workflows. But it wasn't just work. Elena Rodriguez continued her sessions, both individual and group, helping each person process trauma, build resilience, and develop healthy coping mechanisms. You are rewriting your narratives, she explained in a group session. For years, the story you told yourselves was, I am a failure, I am worthless, I don't deserve good things. Now you need to write a new story. I went through terrible things, but I survived. I have value. I deserve second chances. Derek, in particular, struggled with this. What if I mess everything up again? He confessed in a one-on-one session with Jack. What if I prove everyone who doubted me wrong? Then you try again, Jack replied simply. Derek, I've failed hundreds of times in the last 10 years. I tried to get a job. I failed. I tried to find housing. I failed. I tried simply to survive a few days. I almost failed at that too. But I kept trying, and eventually, something worked. Weren't you afraid? Terrified? I still am. I wake up every day thinking this will disappear, that someone will realize they made a mistake giving me this chance. Jack paused. But fear isn't the enemy, Derek. Giving up is. Meanwhile, Thomas was facing his own battles. Margaret, his ex-wife, had agreed to have dinner with him, not a reconciliation, she made clear, but a necessary conversation about the children. They met at a discreet Italian restaurant in Little Italy. Margaret was as beautiful as ever, but there was a hardness in her eyes that hadn't been there when they got married. "The twins miss you," she said, after the initial greetings, "even if they won't admit it. Emma asks about you. Lucas is more hurt. He thinks you chose work over him." "I chose it," Thomas admitted, the words hurting as they were spoken. "Not intentionally, not consciously, but I chose it. And that's something I'll have to live with." "So why did you ask me to dinner, Thomas? To apologize? To ask for another chance? Because if that's the case—" "No," he interrupted her gently. "I know we lost that, what we had. But Margaret, they are my children too, and I need to be a part of their lives, even if it's just alternate weekends and Wednesday dinners." Margaret studied him for a long moment. "You're different," she said finally. "I don't know how to explain it, but you are." Thomas told her about Jack, about the program, about the struggle on the board. "I'm trying to become someone my father would be proud of, someone my children can be proud of. This will take time, Thomas. I know, but time is all I have right now, and I'm willing to invest it." They didn't fix everything that night, but it was a start. Tenuous, fragile, but real. Margaret agreed to have regular dinners with the twins. Lucas might take some time, she warned, but Emma was already asking to see her father. When Thomas returned to his apartment, he had moved to a smaller, more modest place. The mansion in Forest Hill was being sold. He found a voicemail from Emma. "Hi, Dad. Mom said you want to have dinner with us. I'd like that. I have a dance recital next Friday, if you want to come. Anyway, I love you." Thomas played the message 3 times, tears streaming down his face. It was the first time Emma had said, "I love you," in over a year. But while Thomas savored this small triumph, external forces were conspiring to destroy everything he had built. And the threat would come from the last person he expected. Jennifer Park, Thomas's executive secretary for 8 years, was sitting at her desk organizing emails when she noticed something strange. A file on her computer that she didn't recognize, Backup Financiero SC Initiative.xlsx. She clicked on it out of curiosity. What she saw made her choke. Transfers to personal accounts, inflated expenses, purchases that didn't match official records. Someone was embezzling money from the Second Chances Initiative. And the digital approval. Signatures on all the transactions were Jack Morrison's. Jennifer felt nauseous. She liked Jack. Everyone liked him. He was kind, humble, genuinely grateful for the opportunity. But the numbers didn't lie. Nearly $200,000 had disappeared in 8 weeks. She immediately took the file to David Chen. The CFO turned pale as he examined the data. "How did you find this?" "It appeared on my computer. I don't know how it got there." David drummed his fingers nervously. "This is serious, Jennifer. If this leaks, if the board finds out, it's not just the show that ends, it's Thomas. Gregory Hartwell will use this to crucify him. So what do we do?" "Leave it to me. I'll investigate discreetly. Don't tell Thomas anything yet. If it's true, he needs all the facts before confronting Jack. If it's not..." He paused meaningfully. "We need to find out who's trying to sabotage the program." Jack was oblivious to the storm brewing. He was in the development lab with Derek and the engineering team, testing the prototype of the new point-of-sale system. The software was sleek, intuitive, exactly what small retailers needed. "That's brilliant," Marcus Webb admitted, watching Derek navigate the system with expert speed. "Derek, have you ever considered a career in UX design? You have a natural instinct for user interface." Derek blushed, still not used to compliments. "I just know what works in the real world. That's exactly what we need," Marcus replied. "Half of our designers have never worked in retail. They design for what looks stylish, not for what works under pressure. As the session was ending, Jack received a text message from Thomas. "I need to talk to you. Urgent. My office in 30 minutes." The tone was unusual. Thomas was usually casual in his messages. Jack felt a knot in his stomach as he headed to the 11th floor. In the office, Thomas was waiting with David Chen and Jonathan Price, the corporate lawyer. The atmosphere was tense. "Sit down, Jack," Thomas said, his voice carefully neutral. Jack sat down, his heart racing. "What's happening?" David opened his laptop, turning it so Jack could see. "Can you explain this?" Jack stared at the spreadsheet, confusion giving way to horror as he processed what he was seeing. I didn't make any of these transactions. I don't even have access to financial accounts." "Your digital credentials are in all of them," Jonathan said. "Electronic signatures, approvals, everything traceable back to you." "Someone's framing me." Jack jumped to his feet. "Thomas, you have to believe me. I would never, ever steal from you, especially not after everything you've done." Thomas had studied him carefully. 20 years of building businesses had taught him to detect lies. And Jack was telling the truth. He could see it in the man's eyes. Genuine panic, not guilt. "I believe in you," Thomas said calmly. David looked shocked. "Thomas, data can be manipulated." Thomas interrupted him. "Jack, when was the last time you used your corporate login?" "This morning to check emails, but I sometimes leave my computer unlocked when I go to the bathroom or get coffee. I never thought..." Her voice trailed off. "Someone had physical access to your computer," Jonathan concluded. "They used your credentials to create a false trail." "But who?" David asked. "And why?" Thomas already knew the answer. "Someone who wants to destroy the program and destroy me in the process." He looked at Jonathan. "Can you trace these transfers? See where the money actually went?" "It will take time. Offshore banks, intermediary accounts. Whoever did this knew what they were doing." "Then we have to be smarter." Thomas stood up, walking to the window. Down below, the city was bracing for another snowstorm. "Jack, you'll continue as usual. Don't let anyone know we're investigating." "David, work discreetly with Jonathan. I want to know every penny that went in and out of this program." "And what about the council?" David asked. "If Hartwell finds out about this before we have any answers, then we'll do it before he finds out," Thomas said firmly. "We have 10 days until the next board meeting. Enough time to expose who's behind this." Jack was still pale. "Thomas, I swear." "I know," Thomas said, placing a hand on Jack's shoulder. "I know who you are, Jack, and I'm not going to let anyone destroy that." But what none of them knew was that the traitor was closer than they imagined, and time was running out faster than anyone realized. The investigation progressed feverishly over the next 7 days. Jonathan Price and a team of forensic auditors worked 20 hours a day, tracing every transaction, every login, every digital footprint. What they discovered was both ingenious and disturbing. The money had been transferred through 5 different offshore accounts before finally landing in a domestic account, and that account belonged to Patricia Holbrook. Thomas felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. Patricia? Impossible. She supported the program from the start. "Apparently not," David said bitterly. He himself was shaken. Patricia had been his friend for 15 years. "But there's more. We did a forensic analysis of all the computers in the executive department. We found evidence that someone was regularly accessing Jack's system remotely, and guess from which IP address?" "Patricia's office," Jonathan confirmed. "She had access, opportunity, and..." He paused, handing another document to Thomas. "Reason. This is a preliminary employment contract. Patricia as CEO with a compensation package of $4 million annually plus stock, signed by Gregory Hartwell on behalf of a coalition of majority shareholders." Thomas read the document, betrayal burning in his chest. Patricia wasn't just sabotaging the program, she was orchestrating a corporate coup. Why steal the money? Why not just let the program fail on its own? Because it was working, David realized. The retail software prototype is brilliant. If it launches successfully, its growth numbers next quarter will explode. Hartwell loses its justification for removing it. Then Patricia created a scandal, Jonathan continued. Embezzlement involving the lead consultant, a homeless man. The story writes itself. Naive billionaire trusts criminal, loses shareholder money, needs to be removed to protect the company. The board meeting was scheduled for 2 days from now. Thomas had to decide, expose Patricia publicly or deal with it privately. Call an executive meeting, he said finally. All the VPs tomorrow at 8 in the morning. And Patricia can't know what we're investigating. The following morning dawned with clear skies and frigid air, 26 degrees below zero, the kind of Canadian cold that seeps right down to your bones. Thomas arrived at the office at 6, mentally preparing himself for the confrontation. By 8 o'clock, all the executives were present. Patricia arrived last, her face carefully neutral, but Thomas noticed tension around her eyes. She knew. Somehow she knew they had found out. "Thank you all for coming," Thomas began. "I have a few announcements. First, the Retail-Ease prototype, our new point-of-sale system developed with the Second Chances initiative, is ready for beta launch. Marcus, would you like to present the numbers?" Marcus, who was part of the plan, opened his presentation. Preliminary tests with 50 small retailers show a satisfaction rate of 93%. Conservative projections estimate revenue of 15 million in the first year, potentially 40 million by year 3. Patricia maintained her professional mask, but Thomas saw her hands gripping the arms of the chair. "This brings us to the second announcement," Thomas continued. "We've uncovered financial irregularities in the program. $200,000 were diverted through a series of fraudulent transactions." Patricia didn't even blink. "This is terrible. Who was responsible?" Initially, it appeared to be Jack Morrison. His credentials were used to approve the transfers, but a forensic investigation revealed that someone was accessing his system remotely. Thomas paused, letting the silence weigh heavily. "Patricia, do you have anything to say?" The room became so quiet that you could hear everyone breathing together. Patricia finally spoke, her voice as cold as the winter outside. "You have no proof." "Actually, we do," Jonathan Price interrupted, sliding a folder across the table. "IP logs, transaction records, and, my favorite, emails between you and Gregory Hartwell discussing how to eliminate Thomas's pet program before it jeopardizes our case. Your words, not mine." Patricia's face finally broke, anger replacing composure. "You don't understand, Thomas. This company was bleeding. Your little charity project was distracting us from real problems. I was saving Brennan Industries from you." "Stealing from her?" David asked, disbelief in his voice. "I was going to return it," Patricia said disdainfully. "It was temporary, just long enough to create the necessary scandal. The board would have removed you, I would have taken over, cancelled this ridiculous program. And we would all have been rich, including you, David. Hartwell offered you stock, didn't he?" David paled. "I refused." "Of course, always so noble." Patricia stood up. "Do whatever you want. Public exposure, criminal charges, it doesn't matter. I have better lawyers than all of you put together." "Actually," said a new voice from the doorway, "you don't have one." Everyone turned. Gregory Hartwell stood in the doorway, looking 10 years older than the last time Thomas had seen him. Behind him was a man Thomas didn't recognize. Dark grey suit, red tie, stern expression. "This is Richard Morrison, the district attorney," Hartwell said wearily. "I've come to confess my part in this disaster and to testify against Patricia." Patricia turned white. "Greg, what are you—" "I am many things," Hartwell interrupted her. "Greedy, ruthless in business, willing to play dirty. But I'm not a criminal. When you suggested embezzling funds, I said no. When you did it anyway, using our emails as implicit approval, he shook his head. I'm not going to prison for you, Patricia. Over the next 30 minutes, the whole truth emerged. Patricia had orchestrated everything, the embezzlement, the framing of Jack, even planning to leak the story to the media days before the board meeting. Hartwell had been complicit in the corporate scam, but backed down when he realized Patricia was crossing legal lines. Why come to me now? Thomas asked Hartwell. The older man sighed. Because your father saved my company once, in 1989. I was going bankrupt, and Robert gave me a contract when nobody else would. I repaid that by helping to destroy your son. He looked directly at Thomas. I don't agree. With your decisions, Thomas, I still think you're being sentimental and naive, but you don't deserve to be destroyed by fraud. The police arrived 15 minutes later. Patricia was taken into custody, still protesting, still insisting she was saving the company. Hartwell was also escorted in for questioning, although the prosecutor suggested his cooperation could result in reduced charges. Thomas was alone in his office as the sun began to set. His phone rang. Jack. Everyone on the show heard it, Jack said, his voice choked with emotion. Thomas, I don't know what to say. She was going to destroy me, destroy all of us. But it didn't destroy it, Thomas replied. We won, Jack. The program continues, retailees will launch, and you and Derek and Maria and Pete, you proved that second chances aren't just charity, they're good business. And the council? Thomas smiled. Tomorrow's meeting will be interesting. But Thomas had no idea how interesting it would be, or that his greatest victory was yet to come. The council meeting 2 days later was historic. With Patricia removed and Hartwell stepped down under legal agreements, the composition of the board had fundamentally changed. Thomas presented not only the financial figures, growth of 7% and 8%, better than the target, but stories. Derek testified about how the program saved him from suicide. I had a rope in my apartment, he admitted, his voice trembling but firm. In the second week, I thought I wouldn't make it. But Jack found me, and he didn't give up on me, even when I wanted to give up on myself. Now I have a job, a future, a purpose. Maria spoke about how the program reconnected her with her daughters in El Salvador. For the first time in 7 years, she had been able to visit them. Pete, sober for 5 weeks, described how the structure and respect had given him something to live for. And Jack presented retailees. The demonstration was flawless. 3 small retailers, real ones, recruited by Rachel Goldstein for beta testing, how the system had transformed their operations. One increased efficiency by 42%, another reduced inventory errors by 60%. This software exists because people who have lived through the problem designed it, Jack explained. Not consultants in ivory towers, not developers who have never worked a day in retail, people who know the pain, the pressure, the real challenges. When the presentation ended, even the most skeptical members of the board seemed impressed. Motion to expand the Second Chances initiative, proposed one of the members, surprisingly, Harold Chen, who had previously voted against Thomas. Double the budget, increased to 20 participants. The motion passed unanimously. 3 months later, life had changed in ways Thomas could hardly believe. Retailees officially launched in June, with pre-orders exceeding all projections. Brennan Industries was being featured in business magazines, not only for innovation. Try Again, L Continue Technological, but driven by social responsibility. The story of the CEO who nearly lost everything to save a program that transformed lives. Derek had been promoted to user experience manager, leading a team of 5. He was saving up to buy an apartment for the first time in his life, thinking about the long-term future instead of just surviving. Maria had brought her 2 daughters from El Salvador to live with her in Canada. On weekends, she taught sewing to refugee women at a community center, passing on the help she had received. Pete was working in logistics, optimizing supply chains with the military precision he had learned decades ago. His sobriety lasted 3 months, then 6. He had reconnected with his brother in Vancouver for the first time in 15 years. And Jack became the public face of the program. Universities invited him to give lectures. Other companies called asking how to replicate the model. He remained humble, always crediting Thomas, always reminding people where he came from. But Thomas's greatest triumph was not professional. On a sunny August afternoon, he sat in the stands of a hockey arena in Mississauga watching Lucas skate. His son scored a goal, and for the first time in years, he turned toward the stands looking for his father. His eyes met Thomas's, and Lucas smiled, a genuine, unreserved smile. Next to Thomas was Emma, showing videos of her last dance performance on her phone. "You really came, Dad," she said, amazed. "You were really there." "And I'll be at the next one too," Thomas promised. "And the one after that. I've wasted so much time, Emma. I'm not wasting any more." Margaret was a few rows behind with her new boyfriend, a literature professor who treated the twins with genuine kindness. Thomas didn't feel jealous. He felt grateful. She had moved on, and he wished her happiness. After the game, Thomas took the twins out to dinner, a small Italian restaurant that had become a tradition for them. Lucas talked about trying out for the provincial junior team. Emma showed sketches of costumes she was designing for the school's next performance. "You know," Thomas said as they shared a pizza, "for a long time, I was the richest and poorest person at the same time." "What do you mean?" Lucas asked. "I had money, but I lost everything that mattered. You, your mother, my integrity. A man who had nothing showed me how to be rich again." "Jack?" Emma guessed. Thomas nodded. "He saved me from myself." The next day, Thomas and Jack met for coffee at a small establishment near the office, a ritual they had developed. They discussed expanding the program, new projects, and ongoing challenges. 5 of the original 10 participants were thriving. 2 had relapsed, but were trying again in treatment programs. 3 had decided it wasn't for them, and that was okay too, Jack insisted. "Not every story has a happy ending, but every attempt was worthwhile." "Do you ever regret it?" Thomas asked. "That night, if you had just left me there in the snow." "You'd be dead," Jack said simply. "And I'd still be on the streets. And Derek, Maria, Pete, they'd all still be fighting alone. And how many hundreds of people this program will help in the coming years would never have had their chance." He smiled. "No, Thomas, I don't regret saving you, even if you're a stubborn idiot sometimes." Thomas laughed, a genuine, deep laugh, the kind he hadn't given in years. "Fair enough." Her phone vibrated. A message from Rachel Goldstein. "CNN wants to do a story on the show. Interested?" He showed it to Jack. "What do you think?" "I think we're going to help more people than we ever imagined possible," Jack replied. "But only if we do it right. No dramatic editing, no poverty porn. Real stories, real dignity." "I agree." Thomas typed a reply, then put his phone away. Outside, Toronto pulsed with life. Millions of stories, thousands of struggles, countless opportunities for human connection. 6 months ago, Thomas was freezing to death on a sidewalk, drunk and alone, having lost everything that mattered. Today, he was rebuilding, not just his company or his program, but his soul. And it all started with a homeless man who refused to let a stranger die in the cold. For second chances, Thomas clinked his coffee cup. For first chances too, Jack added. For every chance we have to choose kindness over indifference. They toasted, 2 men from Sir. Different worlds who had found something in common. The belief that all life has value, that every person deserves dignity, that it's never too late to start over. And in Toronto, while summer warmed the city that nearly killed them both in winter, Thousands continued their journeys, some climbing, some falling, all deserving of the chance to try. 5 years later, the Second Chances initiative had expanded to 12 Canadian cities and was being replicated in 17 countries. More than 1,200 people had gone through the program. The long-term success rate was 41%, almost double the national average. Derek was engaged, buying his first house. Maria was a grandmother. Her daughters had been born in Canada. Pete celebrated 5 years of sobriety. Thomas and Jack co-wrote a book, The Homeless Man Who Saved a Millionaire, a story of redemption, dignity, and second chances. All profits went to reintegration programs. Lucas was playing college hockey. Emma was studying fashion design. They both called their father regularly, and on Bay Street, where it all began, a discreet plaque marked the spot. Here, on a cold March night, 2 lives crossed paths and changed forever. May we never pass by someone in need of help without extending a hand. Thomas visited her every winter, remembering. Jack too. Together. If this story touched you, it was meant to. Each of us passes by invisible people every day, on the streets, in lines, in the places we frequent. People with stories, dreams, dignity. People who are a disaster, an illness, a divorce, a job loss, all within reach of where Jack Morrison was.